This is the Religious Nons presentation from group number 6. The research was gathered mostly by Dusty Swanson, Carolyn Windham, and Michelle Wright, and is being presented by London Sneeden. The first question is, what is a non? A religious non is someone who does not have a specific religious affiliation. An important thing to note is that the title religious non does not necessarily mean non-religious. Religious non is a very broad and rather vague category, but the book used for our course, Religion and Sociological Perspective, 5th edition, points out 4 main categories: atheists, agnostics, secular unaffiliated, and religious unaffiliated, which made up about 16% of the total population at the time the book was published in 2011. Atheists are those who do not believe in God, making up only 1/10 of the religious nuns according to Pew. Agnostics simply say they don't know if they believe or not, or they believe in some sort of higher power, but are unsure of what it would be, or what the function of it would be, if any. Secular unaffiliated say that religion is not important in their lives, but do not identify as atheists or agnostics, while the religious unaffiliated say that religion is anywhere from somewhat important to very important in their lives, but they do not identify with a specific religious community. In this category as well are nuns that just do not feel a sense of belonging within churches. Many of them accept only parts of their religion and can also be related to those who say things along the lines of, "I'm a Christian, but," followed by a list of items where they differ from the teachings of the church, or claim a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, but refuse to be part of organized religion. Nuns come from all over the believer to non-believer spectrum, and have many other self-identified labels such as deist, pantheist, and secular humanist, but for research's sake, those 4 categories are the most efficient to divide them into. So who are the nuns? Well, like in every group, there are nuns of all ages, races, genders, and sexual orientations. Statistically speaking, though, nuns are more likely to be male, unmarried, under 30, college-educated, socially liberal, and come from a religious background, but are less likely to have children. After reviewing studies, there are some noticeable trends amongst religious nuns. According to Pew, 1 in 5 Americans is considered a religious nun, which means they are starting to make up a significant portion of the population. As shown in the graph, in 1950, religious nuns made up about 2% of the population, but by 2010 make up about 16%. By 2012, nuns were shown to make up approximately 17.8% of the population. From 2011 to 2012, there was only about a 0.3% increase in comparison to the almost full percent increase per year of the last few years, which gives possibility to the growth rate leveling out, or the number could continue increasing at about 1% per year. To put this into perspective, currently Catholics make up about 24% of the United States population. So, if the trend kept going as it was, soon the largest specific religious demographic would be no religion at all. Most of these new nuns are not because older generations stop believing or participating in church, but because the younger generations are not affiliating. As shown in the graph, age plays a pretty significant role in nondom, showing that 18 to 29-year-olds make up the largest percentage, with the elderly making up the smallest percentage of nuns. About 1 in 3 people under 30 are classified as religious nuns, with the largest group being the millennials born between 1990 and 1994. Data collected by Censonig shows that 64% of college students decrease their attendance to church, resulting in overall decline in college student religious participation. About 7 out of every 10 nuns came from a church background, meaning that most nuns consider themselves religious at some point. Because of this, many nuns continue, to some extent, to use their previous religious narratives, rituals, symbols, professed ethics, and so on. According to a study conducted by Baker and Smith in 2009, roughly 80% of atheists claim no religious affiliation, which leaves 20% who still claim identification with a religious tradition. Meanwhile, only 41% of agnostics claim no religious affiliation, leaving nearly 60% who identify with religious traditions. Pew also found that most nuns are socially liberal, with 3/4 of them favoring marriage equality and legal abortion. So this brings forth the next question. What is causing this increase? As previously shown, there is quite a generational gap in religious nuns. Each generation has its own issues and movements, and modernly, the religious right and the liberal left conflict over a variety of social issues. This very likely plays a part in the distance from religion, since younger people in general, especially religious nuns, are more liberal on social issues, while most religious leaders express their conservative beliefs directly from a religious base. Examples of these issues would be tension with the LGBTQ community in general, as well as marriage equality, abortion, birth control, and the list goes on. Another reason, according to Harvard professor Robert Putnam, is a trend amongst youth that could relate to the rise of nuns. He says that youths are not joining organizations across the board. This does not only apply to religious organizations, but organizations like Elks Lodge or the Rotary Club. Yet another study by Baker and Smith showed that children's religious affiliation is very strongly dependent on their parents' religious preferences. Therefore, with more religious non-parents, there are likely to be more religious non-children. But considering 7 out of every 10 religious nons comes from a religious background, it can't be as simple as parents' beliefs passed down to children. So how exactly does one become a nun? There are some that are raised with the acceptance of nunness, but to the others, how do they come to this non-affiliation conclusion? Some view it as maybe the church has failed them, they're just mad at God, or they want to live their lives in guilt-free sin. And while there are various ways one comes to this state of belief, those common assumptions are not by any means popular reasons for the change. Each person tends to go on a different, generally long journey and acceptance process when it comes to changing their religious affiliation, and there are many individual reasons one does this. One reason is that there are so many gods. It is difficult for them to credit any one religion as the truth because of how many there are modernly and have been throughout human history. There's not one that appears more accurate than the others. For example, why Christianity over Judaism, or Islam over Hinduism? Is monotheism really more credible than polytheism? Every position has passionate beliefs and what they see as rock-solid apologetics paired with individual cultures and traditions. As the saying goes, they can't all be right, but they can all be wrong. Today we live in a technological age, and the trend on nons only increases with these advancements. As stated earlier, nons are more likely to be college educated, therefore it can be inferred that technology and higher education played some part in their nonness. With the internet, people have easy access to learn about just how many religions there are, as well as about science and history that they may feel conflicts with religious truth. Many religious, unaffiliated nons see flaws in organized religion and therefore turn away from it. They still believe in a higher power, often the specific one of their previous religion, but choose to worship their deity on a personal level. They often emphasize being spiritual over religious. For example, recently the Christian church has seen many of those who identify as Christian turning away from churches and focusing on a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. With this recent rise in religious nons, it begs the question, how have churches responded? Are they doing anything to incorporate nons and make them feel accepted? The answer is, most are not. They are not trying to make nons feel accepted because they do not view nonness as an acceptable behavior. Instead, they aim to convert if given the opportunity because they believe that nons have just lost their way and need help to believe again. Though there is one denomination that is popular amongst nons called Unitarian Universalist. They describe themselves as diverse in faith, ethnicity, history, and spirituality, but aligned in their desire to make a difference for the good. People with atheist and agnostic views find a supportive community in our congregations. We are pro-science, pro-reason, and pro-evolution. We know there is no one right answer when it comes to belief, and don't let that stop us from taking action for a better world. We build a community that welcomes us in our wholeness, cherishes our doubts, and invites our ongoing search for truth. Unitarian sermons often revolve around secular and humanistic topics and have little to no mention of God or Jesus Christ. Unitarian Universalism is not the only form of community for religious nons, though. Because of technology, mainly the internet, religious nons are able to find community online, whether it be Facebook groups or YouTube channels. Also, because of the rise of nons, communities are forming in the real world as well. Many high schools and colleges have organizations that cater specifically to atheists and agnostics. There is also the Secular Student Alliance, which are located on both high school and college campuses across the country. They advocate for the separation of church and state, while simultaneously aiming to provide community for students in the religious non-category. Also, in most major cities, there are groups that meet up and provide community for religious nons. These groups usually meet up for social and community service events. For example, the Humanists of Houston are a very active group just down 45. In conclusion, religious nons are a rising group in the modern age, and with their rise in numbers, they are changing what it means to be a religious non. In previous times, it would have meant isolation from the rest of the church-going town, but now with technology and modern resources, they are able to form active communities and build ideological connections in the exact same way that those with religious affiliations do.